Hey, welcome to week 2 of Games for Learning and Simulation. My name is Dr. Lee Phelan, and this week we're going to be looking at games that have been designed primarily for adults, or rather game-based learning that's been designed for adults. And we talked about the boundary between game-based learning and gamification, and in this week it gets even blurrier because a lot of the things that are designed for adults are not designed solely for entertainment. They are designed to teach a particular skill and to make a game out of it. Now, this is different, again, between gamification, where gamification, the primary activity is learning some skill, and we apply some elements of game to it. Maybe we have points, maybe we have levels or leaderboards, maybe we have lives like in Duolingo. But in the case of game-based learning, we have a game where we have added this component of learning rather than learning where we've added components of games. So some examples of this will probably be helpful. So a good example, one of the links for this week is Coding Game by CoderPad. So this is a set of games that you'll play, and you control these avatars and these people by writing code. And you do this in order to achieve certain objectives in the game. There are a bunch of different languages you can do, and they help you to level up your coding skills. There are puzzles, games, escape rooms, etc. So all kinds of interesting scenarios. But again, primarily a game. We've got these objectives that we're trying to meet that are game-based objectives, and we are meeting those objectives by applying things that we learn throughout the process. Another example, and again in the coding arena, we have cascading style sheets. So cascading style sheets, if you're not familiar with that, those are ways to style web pages. And there's a particular language and syntax that you use for that. And sometimes it can be a bit tricky to learn, especially with newer aspects as the language changes over the years. And so people have created these games where you can learn how to do certain skill sets such as Flexbox or Grid or CSS selectors by playing a game. And again, it's primarily a game where you are applying learning information, things you've learned in order to play that game. Now, some of these are more gamification than games. So for example, Flexbox Defense, a game, it's a tower defense game where you use CSS syntax to control where your towers are going to go. Whereas CSS Diner is more of a gamification approach where you've got, it's clear you're just learning something and it's kind of gamified in how that presentation works. Knights of the Flexbox Table, another game with learning applied to it, as is Flexbox Adventure, Flexbox Zombies, etc. So you can see that in this page in particular, you can kind of delineate the difference between gamification and game-based learning. So if it's primarily, again, this is important, if it's primarily a learning experience with some game elements applied, it's gamification. If it's primarily a game where you have to use real life learning in order to accomplish the game, then it's game-based learning. So Oregon Trail, another example. It's a game where you're just trying to get to Oregon, but the more you apply real life learning with the landmarks and the hunting skills and the strategies of when to ford a river versus when to build a raft, those types of things are game-based learning. So again, the goal this week is not so much to acquire knowledge about how game-based learning works through study as it is through application. Just like with the Oregon Trail Week, this week you're going to be spending some time in the coding game site or the Learn CSS game sites and to learn an aspect of coding or CSS that you did not know before. If you're not sure what to do and you're interested in game development, I would recommend doing Coding Game, in particular the C# language, since it's used by Unity, and you can also use it in Godot and other game engines. So I would focus on that. JavaScript, also a great way to do it, and Python. Both of those languages have a big following in the game industry. So either C#, Python, or JavaScript would be fine. However, if you're more experienced with web development, you may find some of these CSS games interesting to play as well. So the goal is to play those games and try to get a feel for the difference between gamification, like Duolingo, and game-based learning, which is what some of these are. And then the assignment for this week, after playing those games, you're going to post about your experience. What did you think about? Were they effective in their efforts to teach you coding? Why or why not? And what do you think could be done to improve that experience? And I want you to think critically about that. That's pretty important because as we go through the course, you're going to be developing game-based learning experiences. And so we want to make sure that you have thought that through. Okay? If you have any questions, as always, you can send me an email or send me a message on Slack.